So this is a workshop in mob programming and test-driven development. It's being hosted by Code for Boston. Some of you found out about it through Boston Software Crafters. Can you talk about the code of conduct, Thad?
Sure. So this is a co-created space as we are doing this ensemble programming and ensemble development. And so we do ask you, as you do participate, to follow the code of conduct that's listed on our website. And if you don't feel safe at any point, please contact me, Brian, or Ethan, and we will make sure that the right corrective action is taken. Thank you.
Great. So for our agenda, we're going to have a 75 minutes hands-on section. So like I said, I'm not going to do a lot of explanation ahead of time. I'll explain things as we go along. And you should be able to get the handle of it very quickly. And then after that, approximately 30 minutes of lean coffee. And so lean coffee is just a way to organize and prioritize what you want to talk about with input from all of you. And then post session, which is after the session, it's not an official part of the workshop, but if you want to hang out afterwards, we can either continue the conversation or talk about something completely different, whatever is desired.
Oh, Ethan, just before on the code of conduct sort of related things, we are hoping to record this, and we are sort of hoping to post it to YouTube. So if you don't want that to happen, let us know, and we can decide whether we maybe won't post it to YouTube, or if you can also consider just not turning on your video if you don't want that to go on YouTube. Thank you.
Great. All right, so there's some setup, which I hope will be quick. So the first thing is, if everybody can rename themselves in Zoom. So the way that you do that is you go to the, and the reason for renaming is so that you can indicate your level of experience with PyCharm, Python, and TDD. So if you click on participants, then on the right side of the Zoom window, you should hover over your name, and there should be a rename button. And then you type in your name, followed by a dash, and then PyCharm, your experience level. So PyCharm is an IDE for Python. Python and your experience, and then TDD and your experience. So let's just spend a minute for people to do that.
And it's hard to fit intermediate many times, so you could just shorten it if you want.
Yeah. All right, great. Okay, so let's try it. So there still is some setup to do. The main thing is installing AnyDesk, and then you're all going to be using my computer. So please don't format my computer or look at my email or anything like that, because you'll have complete control over my computer. So the first thing is to download AnyDesk. So Brian, can you, sorry, Dad, can you give Brian presenter? And then Brian, can you present your screen? And while he's doing that, I mean.
Okay, it's done. Sorry, I didn't see the second prompt.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so go ahead and share.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, so I don't see. Oh, I have to stop sharing, I guess. Yep. So are you sharing your computer, Brian?
Yes, that's me. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, for some reason I don't see it, but that's okay. Yeah, so just
I see it now.
it's very simple. So you download AnyDesk, and then you type in the digits. So I guess I should actually now share my screen back because you have to see the digits.
Michelle shared the digits in the chat.
Oh, great. Yep. So you can go to the chat, type in the digits, and I need to start up my AnyDesk session also so that, and then yeah, so I've accepted one person so far. Okay, I see two more people. Okay, so 3 people have been accepted. Okay, 4. So there's 2 that are left. Yep, and as you see, as somebody can see, any one of you can grab my mouse. So that's a little bit tricky. So if you go to, so once you are there, just for a second, don't move your mouse, and either don't touch your computer when it's not your turn to type, or just make sure you're not in this screen when you're doing something on your computer. And in the upper left corner on the Mac, I'm not sure what it is on the Windows, there's the AnyDesk option. And then there is, oh no, I thought it was AnyDesk.
Under actions, right?
Actions, under actions. And then you can unclick.
It'll look a little different for the other people.
Right.
You're the
So what's the
host.
option that you have to select?
It's similar to the keyboard and mouse. It says something about keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can also disable the keyboard and mouse so that you're not accidentally moving the mouse until it's your turn. All right, great. So let me go back to the slides. Okay. All right, and then the other thing is, if you're not familiar with Zoom, there is an option under reactions to raise your hand. And so as part of the mob, if there's something that you want to say, and you're not the navigator, then you'll want to raise your hand. And Brian, if you can watch and see if anybody's raising their hand, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you, Brian and I.
Okay. Yep. All right. So the next step, just a quick explanation. We're going to start mobbing. Everyone's going to take a turn. So we're going to do, let's see, how many people do we have? So I'm going to ask for 4 volunteers. And then we're going to do rotations. And so if you don't get into the rotation, don't worry, because we'll do several rotations and you'll get a chance to be in a rotation. So I guess I'll just, is there anybody who does not want to be in the rotation?
I'm not sure. My desktop is a bit of a mess right now.
Okay, all right.
You don't need to share your screen. You'll just continue to use Ethan's screen the whole time. So
that's fine then.
There won't be any transitions for you. This is exactly how it will be for the whole time.
Perfect.
Great. All right, so let's randomly start with Brian, Molly, Austin, and then Michelle. So I'm going to put those names into the mob timer over here.
It still says it's waiting for a connection, but okay,
Oh, yeah, I have to hit accept.
thanks.
Right. Okay, so let me make this a little bit bigger. And this is a great tool for mob timing. There are other tools out there, but I've come to like this one. Okay, so I said, okay.
Something change about the AnyDesk by chance when I connected? I just want to make sure that other people are still in there. I only see 2 people on the list right now.
It says it was interrupted.
Okay, mine also said that. So maybe we just can't have 10 people. We only need 4 people anyway. So maybe the people that are going to be joining the ensemble mob can connect.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think if there would be a limit. Yeah. Yeah, so if the 4 people I mentioned can join. All right, so we need, I think, 1 more person to join.
Which one?
You said, was it Molly and Austin? Is that right?
Yeah. Molly.
Yeah, it
Austin.
says connecting.
Okay, so I think I need to.
Mine said the session was interrupted on the remote side.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like 4 people are there, right?
I think I'm somehow in it, but I don't know how to disconnect it from there.
Okay, it's
I'm
fine.
not sure if I'm supposed to be there, but
Yeah, so the 4 people that we want there are Molly, Michelle, Austin, and Molly.
You want to accept Molly there, Ethan? You see the accept button?
Okay, thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and so 1 more person. I don't know, who is Gingerbread?
that's just
Mich-
me.
That's Michelle. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we need 1 more person.
Sorry, I have trouble to build the connection.
All
Probably,
right, then we'll pick someone else. Thad, can you join?
Mine, I tried, and that's when everyone fell off. But I can try again.
No, we got another person.
Okay, great.
here.
Andy, so that you have joined, right?
Yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you for confirming.
Okay, great. All right. So let me put these names down.
Yeah, if you were doing this in a project context, maybe these people would be people you're working with on a regular basis, and so you would kind of just all join in and then start rotating like this. So go ahead, Ethan.
Yep. Actually. Okay.
Good to see the credit card, last 4 digits. Very useful.
look,
All right, great. And Gingerbread. And wait, so the IMAME is
yeah, that's
who?
me, Andy.
Okay.
Imam being my last name, E just being initial first letter of my name, first name.
Great. Okay. So, okay, so we've got that set up. I'm going to make this smaller. And I need to make sure that on the client settings, I've got enable timer sounder. Okay. All right, so now let me show you the project that we're going to work on. So the project that we're going to work on is a vending machine kata. Great. And the idea of the vending machine is, if we look at README here, let me get this out of the way. So you're going to build the brains of a vending machine. So it's going to accept money, make change, maintain inventory, and dispense products. And so the way that test-driven development works is you write the tests first, and then you write the code. So in order to make it quicker to start up, I've written some of the tests. And so our job is going to be to implement them. And so the first test that we're going to write, yeah, somebody is moving their cursor. So if you can be careful. That is one of the problems with okay. So let me come back to PyCharm. Okay. So the very first test that we're going to write is that we can create a vending machine and we can tell the system what the total is. So I'll show you how you do the very first one. And then we can, and then at that point, we can start navigating. So this is, if you see there's a red, oh, actually, let me run the test.
No such directory, and that means that's probably not. Yeah, it's probably not pointing to Python.
Yep, yep. Okay, let me, I thought I had this set up right, but let me.
Say assert machine dot change equal a single equal, and thus is not like comparator. So it's like
Okay,
assume that it's expecting a
yep.
to be a Boolean value to return. So
First bug found.
There we go. Okay. Yay.
hey, typos, just
Sorry for that.
error to has
Okay.
Should we start the clock?
Well, I want to again come back to doing the first test, and then we'll start the clock.
Okay.
So under test vending machine, the first test that we're going to try, that I'm going to do for you, is this one. So it says there is no class vending machine. So I right click. So this is called in test-driven development, there's a cycle called red-green refactor. And so the red is where you create a test that doesn't pass. And I've actually created many tests that don't pass, just so that we've got some setup. Because actually we'll get to it, one of the harder parts is figuring out what tests to write. Okay, and then, so for this, when I go over this, it says, I can just create the class vending machine. And I'm going to just do it like that. Okay, and now when I run it, I'm going to get a different error. Okay, and this time the error that I get for this particular test, I can click on that particular test, which is test new vending machine balance. And it says vending machine takes no arguments. So let's now get, so I'll now get started with the navigation. So you can start the clock. Oh, and it should be, sorry, can you make that a 4-minute clock, Thad?
Yeah, I'll modify that.
Okay, great.
What was the path you used on your mob time?
Oh,
Yes, I
let's see.
BSC?
think so.
Yeah, BSC, yep. Okay, so the first, so according to the mob timer, who is the first person to navigate, and then who is typing?
I think I'm typing.
Okay, and then Brian, you're navigating. So
Okay.
so there's many styles of navigation. The style of navigation we're going to use here is it's the navigator gives directions to the person who's typing. If you don't know the language, you can ask me. And if you've got an idea and you really want to share it, rather than just blurting it out, which can distract the person who's navigating, you can raise your hand in Zoom, and and then Thad can ask the navigator if he wants advice from whoever it was who raised their hand. So it sounds like a very formal style, raising your hand and stuff. For beginning mobs, this strict navigator style, or it's actually called strong navigator style, is a really good way to start. And then once you become familiar with each other, then there's other types of navigation styles that you can do. So go ahead, Brian, let's see if we can get this to pass, this test to pass.
Sure. Well, it looks like the first issue is that we need to initialize. We need to have an initializer for our vending machine class, which needs to set an instance variable called machine total on it. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Python.
A little familiar, but not super familiar with classes.
Okay, so yeah, you need a double underscore init method here. So it's def.
Okay. Oh, yep.
Yeah, it'll complete it for you. Looks like.
Okay.
If you delete.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
This one here.
Top one. Yep.
Okay.
And then it'll take a second argument, which would be the balance, I guess, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So self, again, if you don't know Python, self is just every method on a class just has an implicit first argument, which is bound to that instance. So we can just assign instance variables by doing self dot and then the total.
Okay.
And one
Or
neat
machine
thing
total.
I want to show about this too is if you right click on balance and go to generate. No, generate is above.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. And
Then-
implement methods, I think. No, okay, all right, it didn't work. All right. Anyway, so sorry for interrupting.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a common pattern, so I'll bet there is a way to do it quickly. But
Yeah.
self was it machine total? I think it was called.
Yep,
Is it machine like that?
Yeah, and then just set that to the balance.
Okay.
You can just, I guess pass won't do any harm there, but it's not really necessary anymore.
Okay.
okay,
And,
and yeah, oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead.
well, I think that's all the first test is checking, if I'm not mistaken. It's a little hard to see, but so if you could
Okay.
like, scroll down a little bit, I can't tell what else it's checking, but I think that was,
Oh, this
oh,
down
I guess,
here.
yeah, so we also need to set deposit total to 0.
Okay.
Although I guess with TDD, I don't know. I don't know TDD very well, but I guess we probably let that fail and then we fix that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of the way to do it. I mean, it's you don't typically, yeah, you fix one error at a time. Yeah, so if you want to click on the run button, which is in the lower left,
Lower left.
and can
This one
these
here?
Yep. Okay, and then click on test new vending machine balance on the left. Okay, and it tells you why it failed.
Hmm?
And so it's saying it failed on that statement. So do you see where it says assert machine dot deposit total equals 0?
Mhm.
And so it's telling you that that's where it got the error.
Ah, okay. So this was fine, but not this one.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you access an undefined attribute in Python, it's an error. So we have to assign that.
Okay. So same way as up here.
Yep. And I think we're just going to set that to 0.
Okay. Nope.
All right.
Okay, and then yeah,
That's
it
good.
passed, and which is great. And it
Nice.
Now,
tells you that it passed.
Mhm.
what's the
Excellent.
next test?
So that's the red and green. So we got it to pass. Now, you might want to look and see, is there anything after the green? You want to do what's refactoring, and refactoring means, improving the code to make it more readable, remove duplication, etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do during refactor, which I can talk about later. So what I like to do in the refactoring stage, navigator, if there's any refactoring that the navigator sees, they say it, and then I like to the navigator throw it out to the crowd. Is there anything else that you see that you think should be, that could make the code cleaner?
Well, it would be nice to know what exactly those properties mean. That would be one thing to document those, but that's not really refactoring. I guess that's documentation refactoring.
Yep.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what deposit total means, but is that how much it has dispensed? Or is that how much it's taken in, I guess?
Yeah, so the deposit total, go back up to the deposit total. So the deposit total is maybe if it was renamed coin slot total, would that be more obvious?
I actually think deposit makes sense since people just put money in a vending machine. They don't really take it out, right? I don't know, but maybe
Is
Okay,
that agreement?
that's a
I heard.
sound. I think that was the timer.
That's the
Oh,
timer, yes.
I mean, maybe total deposited or total received.
I'm not sure what the distinction is between that and machine total. I guess that's fine.
Yeah, I think machine total is the difficult one.
Yeah, yeah, let's not quite rotate yet because this is an interesting conversation. So yeah, if you go, if you can keep it there, yeah. So machine total is a person puts in, you start out with $400 in the machine, and then somebody buys something for $1.25, so they've deposited $1.25. So the machine total then is 401.25. And the total amount that the person has deposited in the coin slot is $1.25.
Mhm.
Once the thing is dispensed, that deposit total goes down to 0. Does
So-
that? Yep.
So amount in coin slot, I mean, that's a long name, but is that what we're basically describing as the deposit total?
Yeah, yep. So that sounds good. So let's, so if I can tell you how to do that, right click on that field, refactor, rename, and then change
was
it to total in coin slot. Is that what was that Michelle who said that?
Or was
That
it
was me.
coins? Was it coins? And oh no,
Total in
in
coin slot.
coin. Is that 2 words? Coin slot.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
It also, I mean, I'm happy to hear other names too. That was the most verbose, but just trying to, that's what came to my mind.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this just brings up another interesting point with mob programming with the strong style. So you have suggestions, and then it's really up to the navigator to decide, rather than like taking a poll can take some time. So
And Brian was our navigator, right? Because we
right,
haven't switched
right.
over.
So Brian, do you like that name?
That's fine. Yes.
Okay. So click on refactor, and then we should actually see that our tests have changed as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that has changed as well.
Convenient.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Any other refactoring?
Not yet.
I see one thing, which is we initiate the vending machine with a balance, but we set the machine total. So either we should call the machine total the balance, or we should rename the parameter.
Well, I think that, I mean, so we could say starting amount or starting balance, but the total makes sense to me as something that gets modified. I
Okay,
could, I don't know.
all right. So I just bring that up, but so let's switch to the next person.
Can someone that's controlling the screen pull up the mob time so everyone sees how it works?
Yeah.
Which browser is it in? Okay.
I can make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah. So you want to pop over to the overview? So what's about to happen is I'm going to press the start turn, and that will begin the turn for Molly as a navigator, and Michelle, her handle is Gingerbread, will start being the driver. So Michelle, you're going to be the one controlling the screen, and Molly will be the one that's acting like Brian was acting just a minute ago. Any questions?
Which thing do what editor are we using?
Yeah,
chart.
the same setup. It'll just be.
I just never clicked on it. I just didn't see where people
So are
clicked.
we ready to start the turn?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. So now you can go over to PyCharm. It's PC at the bottom corner. And yeah, take it away, Ethan. And
Yeah, so Molly, your turn to navigate. I would suggest going to the next test, unless you want to do other refactoring.
Okay. No, we can go to the next test. So let's see. I guess if we click on test nickel and see what's failing.
Oh, good call.
Oh,
I cannot click on test nickel.
oh,
The mouse isn't, okay, hang on. My mouse is not lined up with, I think I have to change something
Oh.
here. Hang on just a sec.
Mhm.
Okay, that's closer. Okay. All right. Don't change the dimensions of your window, it seems. Okay, so
Okay.
vending machine object has no attribute deposit.
Okay, so we need to give it a deposit.
I believe deposit is a method. Okay. Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
I see.
you're the driver. You're the driver.
It's okay.
I'm not a good dancing partner. That's not what I meant.
So Molly's, I like the emojis I put in there. Molly's like holding the compass and like guiding, and you're at the keyboard, Michelle.
Yeah, no, I mean, I realize I'm just doing a bad job. Go ahead, Molly.
Okay, so we need to add a
Doing great.
basically so a method so that we can add money into the coin slot, basically. So deposit, and we're gonna take in an amount. And then so then that'll add the amount to the total in coin slot. Right?
Is this valid, Python? I don't.
Yep,
know.
it is.
Super. Hang on. Sorry. And machine total, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah, add it to the machine total too.
All right, we can run.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Is it running?
I
I don't
think
know
so.
what's going on. Where is
You need
the
a little
mouse?
guidance of how to run it, Michelle.
Sure. I mean,
Oh, so-
does
do
Michelle
it
need to
this
click?
way.
Okay. So it's still failing. What's it saying? Deposit nickel measures. Takes 2 positional arguments, but 4 were given.
Oh, I don't know how to do an arbitrary number of.
Yeah, well, let me, you don't have to do an arbitrary. If you go down, there's some syntax that I just learned myself. So asterisk nickel measures means take nickel measures and turn it into parameters. So if you look up at nickel measures, nickel measures, has 3 values. So what happens is when you expand it, that method is got, expands to 5. It's as if you put 5, comma 0.835, comma 1.95.
Sure, but
so
what
we
does
would
that tell us? How do we add that into an? Do we need to take the measurement of to see which?
Let's rotate at this point. So Michelle, so
Sure,
you're going to navigate. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Andy, are you back?
And
Andy went away. I'm
Oh,
not
he did?
sure. We might want to rotate to the next person.
Brian?
Or we could either go Brian or Peak, if Peak is ready, because Brian already went.
Oh,
Peak, would you like to go?
Sure. How do I?
Okay.
This is my
Are you
first-
able to move the mouse right now? With the
Yes.
AnyDesk? You are. Okay. Great. So I'm going to move you up then to be the driver, and I'm going to start the turn.
great.
Great. So here we go.
So can you go back up to nickel for a sec to see all the?
Do
So
I have
scroll up.
request control?
No, just
if you probably have it right now, can someone click on the AnyDesk icon? It's the other one, not that one. Yeah. And so. Yeah, you will need to type the number from the chat and request control, and then you'll join.
Oh, okay. So I do request control.
Yeah, the number is 873-102-023.
Where do I put it?
In the app AnyDesk, if you've already downloaded it, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, maybe we'll just wait and come back to you in a bit.
Yeah. Let me download it so you can go to the next person. So
you need to download it. Okay, Brian, do you want to pick up again?
Sure. Am I typing or am I?
You're driving.
Driving. Yes, that's what I meant. Okay, let's try this.
And you peek. I put the number in the chat again, so you can see it when you get it going, and we'll not be able to tell when you join.
Okay, thank you.
So if it were me, I might make a function that would, or a method.
Hey, sorry, I'm sorry I was away.
That's okay. Well,
worries,
I think
we
you
can
can
put
do
you
it
next.
next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would compare the weight and return whether it was a nickel, a dime, or a quarter, if I'm understanding correctly. But is there a test for that kind of method?
Yeah, so go back down to the nickel test. So, and if you keep going down further, there's also a test for the dime.
Okay, so we're not writing a method for this. We're just doing that in here.
Say that question again.
So we're not doing a separate method that compares the values. We're just doing that inside this function, inside this method.
No, it has to be within vending machine. And right now we've got vending machine in the same file. Eventually we could move it out to another file.
No, yeah, never mind. It's okay. So we're doing it in the deposit.
Yes. Oh, I see.
Method.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say we need to accept 3 arguments, weight, whatever, and whatever those are.
Is this the same issue you had where it's not synced? Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to change your screen size. There's a little black box. Weight, and then something.
Diameter, thickness,
Well,
diameter.
just scroll up and it'll be there. There's a comment that contains the diameter and thickness. Nope, you can never type in here again. I think the cursor is just not visible. I think if you start typing, it'll.
I am typing.
You are
I'm not
typing.
sure where I'm typing.
Okay.
I can select that.
Well,
Did I
don't know, man.
Did I surrender control?
I don't think so.
Let me see.
Is your dimension of your screen different from this one? Is that the problem you had, Michelle?
Yeah.
If you've changed the dimension?
So if you change the dimension of like the AnyDesk screen, there's this little black outline that is around your visible, what you can see. So you want to try and line that up.
Well, it is different, but I'm looking at the screen as it's coming over Zoom.
Oh,
to
nice.
Position my cursor. So
well, it might not. I mean, you might need to be able to press on the same place. I don't know. But it did select it, so it looks like it's.
Yeah, it's selecting the line that I want to select. It's just
Let me try clicking in there. Yeah, this isn't.
Okay.
Do you
This
have
is not typing.
It's not Vim key bindings. I tried that. Should we just unfocus and then refocus the window?
Sure. Yeah.
So the timer just ended. Maybe we can go to Andy next because Andy was waiting. and Brian, you can navigate. Thank you for both of your efforts. Sorry about the technical difficulties with AnyDesk.
No worries.
A lot of this stuff does resolve itself once everybody's used to the tool, but there's a little bit of familiarization.
All right, if you have clues, by the way, feel free to drop out those pieces of wisdom.
Yeah, it's a little bit special to each person. So
Oh, nice.
Well, and yeah, I'm not sure. It's like anything. I'm not sure why we're having problems. I haven't had problems like this with AnyDesk before. So one of the things that it could be is that I've got a laptop screen, and I always do it with my big screen. I didn't think of, oh, I should test it with the laptop.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it doesn't.
Well, we can try minimizing the window and bringing it up again.
Ethan, what
Like
time
Brian
did we want to go
suggested.
till?
Well, yeah, I want to let's do
For
this
this
for
phase.
another half hour.
For this phase, half an hour, and for this phase, 15 minutes. What were you-
for this
It
what did you-
said 45 minutes, I think, or
Right.
that's what the,
Right, we ran into so many. I said 75 minutes.
no, it said 45 minutes for the, or maybe it said 75 minutes, I don't know. It said more than half an hour, that's what I remember.
Absolutely. So Ethan, what do you think?
I think we should do this some more.
So let's let the next two people go, and at least, and maybe even another round around.
And maybe I should do the typing, since there seems to be so much issue with the control.
Okay. Well, let's see how it goes with Andy and
Okay.
Peak. Brian doesn't have to control in this next round, so I'm going to start the timer. And Brian, if you would navigate with Andy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we were going to add three parameters to the deposit method on the whatever it's called, vending machine class. It was weight, diameter, and thickness, I think. Oh,
Yeah, the screen is unshared, Ethan. So if you could reshare your Zoom, that would be great.
It was Brian that was sharing, actually, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay. Maybe that was the source of the challenge. Maybe you should share,
Maybe.
Ethan.
Who knows?
Okay. So you can see my screen now, correct?
yes.
I can see, as you were saying,
Yeah. So basically, it's using the splat operator down there. If you look at how test nickel says asterisk nickel measures, which just is a tuple of three arguments or three numbers, which are I think it was weight, diameter, and thickness. But you can scroll up. Yeah.
yeah, I
to
see
see what
nickel
those are called.
5, yeah, weight, diameter, and thickness.
So I think ultimately we're going to have to determine from those what it is that what has been deposited into the machine. But so we're gonna have to distinguish them that way. But yeah, so let's add a weight and a diameter and a
I'm like
thickness
trying to
argument.
type, but
You can't type either.
Okay.
Map 1-to-1. Why I'm not typing?
Maybe minimize the window and maximize it again, like minimize it, hit the
Power
orange.
off,
on
power
the-
on. Yes.
Yeah, so top left of the editor.
Like backspace work apparently, but not every other button.
So top left of the editor, hit the minimize on the editor.
Wait, this editor
Yeah,
Yep.
minimizes the yellow. I don't use Mac.
yep.
PyCharm, Community Edition,
Yay, cursor's back.
Hey.
Oh, that's so
diameter and
And
diameter
thickness.
thickness.
Yep. And what is it that we have to test with this? I sort of forgotten.
Well, you can run the test and then you can look at the failure again.
Okay. I would just look at the test personally, but
Wait, is there a place to run the test?
Click on the run in the lower and the bottom of the screen.
Oh, 4, right.
Yeah, and then run again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have probably assume, yep, it's not, there's like an assertion error about not having, or having amount be not of that assigned.
oh wait, what's the actual error? I don't see the error that it's describing.
Testing when depot. Oh,
Scroll down a little further. A little further.
what the? Name
Yeah,
amount
no,
is not defined. So
Yeah.
we probably need to have amount be defined, like with a value.
Okay.
Yeah,
Should we change? Should we rotate?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So Peak, are you ready? So yeah, you're driving now, Peak, and Andy is going to help you navigate.
Okay, so what I would assume is like we had to find a way to get the value given the weight, diameter, and thickness. So I assume we had to like do some checking on those values and see if it's all correct. No, I'm a bit busy, Dad. Sorry, just in the meeting. In meeting, Dad. Sorry. As I was saying, so we had to find a way to like get the amount assigned. So say if the values are equal to, say weight, diameter, and thickness are all equal to the constant nickel measure, then the amount will be equal to 5, and that will be added to the amount.
So you want me to put like a if clause in here?
Yeah.
Can I type it? Hold on. Oops.
Are we having cursor issues there, Ethan?
So just minimize and maximize the window.
Yeah, it seems like this, I mean, it's likely Java or something environment is having trouble tracking the cursor. There we go.
Okay.
Back. Thank you, Michelle. Good troubleshooting.
Can you repeat?
So open parentheses, weight, comma, diameter, comma, thickness. Close parentheses, double equal sign, nickel measure. And then amount equals to 0.05.
So like this?
No, is colon sign. Amount equals 0.05.
5?
0.05. Wait, is
The amount in dollars, right?
Yeah, so 0.05 is correct.
okay.
That?
Yep.
And then run the test.
On bottom left, it's a 4 run, and click on the
like that.
Hey, it's run. Why not try testing the rest?
Oh, okay. Oopsie.
And we had to test for dime. So we could do like the same thing, but for dime and quarter. So with LF, which is basically else if.
So if we, okay, so the 1 second, hold on. Okay, so in the same here, but L.
After that, LF, ELIF. Yeah, tuple is basically an object in and of itself, and tuples can be like a kind of can be compared. So that same weight, diameter, thickness equals to dime.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
And dime being 0.1.
Then do it again with the other measure. Quarter.
Yeah, but with quarter. And the amount being 0.25. LF.
Oops.
And try testing it now. Yeah, so nickel, dime, and quarter are all correct.
Okay.
Let's see what other tests to fit.
Actually, at this point, it'd be a good time to look at refactoring.
Okay.
So it's red, green, and then refactor. So you can either refactor the tests or the code itself.
I was hoping to have some other idea of refactoring, but I guess for the time being, that's a bit too far. Like considering if I was thinking of setting a sort of like a dictionary, putting those weight, diameter, thickness into a value, and then to like a dictionary access.
That's a reasonable refactoring. Yep. Because you've got repetition here.
Yeah.
And we might add half dollars and things like that.
Yeah, because that's actually a thing.
Also, I mean, like nickel measures is a tuple. Can't you just pass nickel measures as an argument and then just compare?
In a dictionary, actually, yes.
So I'm just saying, like in the test, if you just pass nickel measures or dime measures or whatever, see the test below, it breaks out. Not that I do appreciate that the star sign breaks it out into arguments, but if you don't break it out into arguments, then we can just compare the tuple. Are we envisioning that we can have a tuple in the future for this, or would this just always be separate arguments?
That was time on the round, but this is a good discussion, so we probably want to finish it. Just let me know when to start with Peak and Molly.
Okay. Yeah, so for nickel measures, my kind of, I don't know, it just, I guess it would be up to the navigator to decide it, or take a vote, or yeah, so you could pass a tuple. I guess there's no.
Well, I mean, if you think there are advantages, if you're okay, I mean, if you think there are advantages to passing individual arguments, then that's good. If there aren't, then I might consider passing just the whole tuple, because then it's easier to compare.
Yeah, I guess the advantage go back up to the function, the deposit. So if I just passed a tuple, it wouldn't be obvious what the three parameters were. And this way it's weight, diameter, thickness. So you can just look at the method and it's clear what parameters it should take.
That's fair. That's a good reason.
Yep.
A dictionary sounds like a good idea too.
Yeah. All right. So let's navigate. Sorry.
Okay,
Let's.
I'm starting the
rotate.
turn. For Peak, Peak is the navigator and Molly is our driver.
Sorry, what's the navigator do?
So you provide directions to the person who's typing.
Oh,
And you can provide, if you're not familiar with Python, you can provide high level, you should, you want to take into consideration the experience of the driver. If the driver's got a lot of Python experience, you don't have to give them syntax. If neither of you have Python experience, then you can ask me for the syntax. And so the current suggestion is that we use that we put this in a dictionary, which lets you look up the weight, diameter, and thickness. And so you can have a dictionary which would say that for this weight, diameter, and thickness, this is the value. And so it's like a lookup. A dictionary is like a lookup.
I would also note that we're not currently handling the situation where amount is undefined, which would crash right now.
There hasn't been a test for it yet, so.
I know. We can anticipate these things, surely we're allowed to.
Well, I thought part of the point was that we're passing one test at a time. Like one way to have handled the nickel one would have been to just add 0.5, without any checks. So I don't know. That's what I understood as test-driven development is you write a test for that. For example, if that's a situation you want to handle, you'd write a test for not passing anything or whatever.
Yeah, Michelle's,
but
Michelle's correct.
Well, that's sort of my point though, is like in practice, you would be anticipating that situation, right? So you write that test. I don't know.
Ethan has more experience with test-driven development.
You wouldn't do it until you had written the test. And I haven't written out all the tests. So it's a tricky decision about when to write what tests.
That was an improper end. That wasn't actually end. I restarted it because they hadn't really started doing anything yet. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I could have, I know those things, and so I could have written that test, and it would have been probably after the nickel diamond quarter test. But you might also want to go on to other things that are, it's probably quite a good thing to do to handle the exceptions when you're doing it. I didn't do it for this, in this example, I didn't do it, but yeah, when you're writing out the test for deposit, it's good also to think about the exceptions.
So I think the purpose of that is that, like in this simple situation, it's easy to be like, okay, we want to check for this and check for that, check for that. But in a more complex situation, you want to think first about the edge cases and exceptions, and then you want to make sure you cover each of them thoroughly instead of, trying to deal with them all at once and then write the tests for all the things you handled.
Yeah, and writing the edge cases, or the actually it's there's the happy path and the sad path. So like somebody putting in something with a different weight, diameter, and thickness that's not already listed is not necessarily an edge case. I mean, maybe someone puts in a Canadian quarter, and that's not that unusual. So I think of edge cases more as something that's very unusual. Anyway, any other, do we want
to try the refactor that Andy has suggested, the dictionary to value thing?
Yep. So who's the navigator again, Dad?
The current navigator is Peak, and the current driver is Molly.
Okay, so Pete, do you have any questions about the last suggested refactoring?
Actually, I'm not following, so I'm sorry. I know that you guys talk about like want to do a dictionary, right? So like okay, declare variable dictionary, and we
Oops, I don't know, just did.
and
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, so are you, Peek, are you familiar with the
yeah, I know the dictionary. So that's
Let's do like
so then and then equal you would have 3 key, right? One nickel, one for dime, and one for quarter. Is that
That sounds good to me. I think the driver can also pitch in if you have feelings as a driver.
oh sorry.
okay.
I'm just saying, like, I think everyone, you know, folks can be involved in the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds right. So we would want the key to be the values that are passed in, right? So the tuple should be the key, and then the value would be
Oh, I was thinking the opposite.
the other way
But
around.
That's what I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Would it matter?
So the value you're getting in is the weight, diameter, and thickness. And so in order to use that to fetch a value, you might want to have that be the key and the other be the value that corresponds to that key. Does that make sense? I don't know. If that doesn't make sense, we might want to discuss it more.
Yeah. So it would be, if in that case, it would be like this.
That's what I'm describing. I'm happy to be, you know, superseded, but Peek, if that's a pattern that you want to try right now, you can definitely take over. I didn't mean to.
Oh no. I don't know about this either. But from what I know, the dictionary in Python is I never see a tuple as a key.
Yeah,
So that's what Andy was saying. Andy said that tuples are primitives, so they can be a key.
Okay. So then we can try that, and then so that would be a 1 key pair, right? So the next one. Right. But I'm lost. How do you apply it to the current function that was done before?
So we could so instead of having an if else if bunch of else if statements, we could have the amount set to the dictionary value at the key of the tuple, I guess. Like, so amount equals coin dictionary.
I think that's
keep doing
square.
that?
I think that's square brackets.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And then it would be like this. Weight, diameter, thickness, like that.
That's what I was envisioning.
We could
but
try.
I don't want to take over.
Should we try it? Should we? Does that work there? Nope.
Yeah, okay.
How do you comment out multiple lines here?
Command slash.
Oh,
Oh, if
that's
you're
what
on
I
a
tried.
Mac.
No, I'm on a Windows. I'm doing
So yeah, you need
control
to,
slash, but
this is another big gotcha with the AnyDesk. You have to think about which computer that you're connecting to. And so
Oh.
you have to use the Windows key because that's the one like the command key.
I
But
gotcha.
there you go. You got it.
Okay.
Same thing for copy and paste.
That makes sense. All right, so should we try running it? So it's still pass. Okay.
Okay, that was the end of the turn.
You finished the refactor. Congratulations.
Yes, great refactoring. Excellent.
So another turn, Ethan?
Yeah, one more turn and then I guess we'll open it up for discussion.
Okay, Molly and Michelle, Gingerbread, go ahead.
Okay. So we've refactored. So then the next thing would be to try to make the next test pass.
Yeah, and so before that, oh, did somebody just delete the comments?
Yes.
Okay, that the navigator should have said that. That's another
Oh, yeah.
refactoring to get rid of the
Mhm.
comments.
Oh,
That's true.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what
when
I-
I drive or sometimes I help too. It's kind of a judgment call, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we delete the commented out code we don't need anymore. And then we check what's the next test that we need to get to pass?
So it
The
would be-
multiple coins.
yeah, and this is probably a pretty tough one.
Mhm.
So maybe we should do that. The one of the how about writing a new test
For
to test if you get something that what happens if you get something that's not that's not any of those weights.
okay.
I'm also, I don't know, like, you know what, you direct me and sorry,
Okay, I'll try.
I have things in
All
my
right.
own head.
So let's say machine equals vending machine. So so 400, I guess we could still do. And then machine dot deposit. I guess we could just put in different weights, diameters, and thickness, or a different weight. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, because that's not going to be something that we would get from a regular coin. And then can you scroll down a little bit so I can see the other test? Okay, so then assert machine dot total or underscore total. Oh yeah, machine underscore total equals 2 equals. It should still be 400. But should we have it like give an error, or should we?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe you would have, in this case, you'd have a vending machine state.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could say, you could do an assert machine dot message equals invalid.
Invalid coins or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, invalid coin. Okay. All right, so we'll have to add the message to the class.
Right. So first, let's run the
Oh,
test.
yeah. Okay, so we'll run it, make sure it fails. Okay, so at the deposit. Okay.
That was the turn. 4 minutes. I don't know. Go ahead, I guess. Ethan, decide how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is a good stopping point.
Should I save?
Yeah, so what you would do here then is obviously fix this error and then refactor it. So let's open it up for discussions for well, actually let's first do a retro. And then we can propose different topics and we can discuss those topics in order. So for the retro, what we want to do, let me open up the slides. And everybody can drop off of AnyDesk at this point, I think.
Okay, we're quitting AnyDesk.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just close AnyDesk. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would be the easier way to do it. Thank you.
We did in the end. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
All
right, so back to the presentation.
So you can recycle the mob time, but it does wipe out after a few hours.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to do a retro. So everyone gets a turn to say, what did you like or learn? What worked well? And what changes do you want to try? And if you also want to comment on how you could see bringing this back to the stuff that you did, or yeah, so those will be the four questions. So what did you like or learned? What worked well? And what changes would you want to try for the next workshop, or if you brought it into your own project? So we'll do popcorn style, which means that I'm going to call on somebody and then that person calls on another person after they're done. So we'll start with Brian.
Right. What did I, sorry, do I have to answer all three questions?
Whichever ones you want to.
Okay. I guess I still need to be sold on TDD. And maybe my skepticism came through a little bit. Not that I think it's like, I mean, obviously I think it has utility. I do think it's an extra thing for people to learn. Although it does sound like it is pretty common practice in the world of ensemble programming to like combine the two things. I do kind of see them as somewhat separable, but I guess they can also be complementary. I don't know if anyone else feels similarly or differently. I just felt like it was another thing to get over, but I thought the problem seemed like they were the right scope and the right I don't know, the right type. It's just unfortunate we had some technical barriers at first. So it's a lot of things to learn at once, I think.
Yeah.
Who's here? Who can I pop? wise. Popcorn. Andy, do I have to ask a question? I'm sorry, or do I just pass it over to?
Yeah, just Andy. You just call on the next person. So Andy, it's your turn.
Andy,
I
you're
guess what I like or learn is, I guess, hard for me to think, but I guess what worked well is sort of the trying to cycle through with the teams and bring their contributions in before going to the next turn. I guess some changes would be trying to having some preparedness with the test, or maybe just having done all the business code on a separate file instead of just all on the same page as the testing file, just so it's be less confusing just moving up and down from part of the page file to
So you're saying the positioning of the windows.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be nice to see them. Sorry, am I allowed to talk? I can wait.
No, we do
I'll
it in
And I
order.
guess I should pop it off to Thad.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess one of the things that we learned was that AnyDesk it has a few failure modes that you can when you get to larger groups, and also that sometimes with certain apps it seems to lose your cursor, but I still think it's kind of one of the better solutions that I've seen for this kind of thing. It also works really well for holding state between sessions. So I want to put that out there. We didn't get to demo that today, but that is a thing. So let's see what the other things that so I would propose that you do try. Imagine how AnyDesk would work between sessions. So one person could like actually hold the state. And the middle question was to learn what did I like. What worked well. So I think I think AnyDesk worked well in some ways, and is worth continuing to pursue on this. We will mention probably in the next slides that VS Code can be used and is often used in Ensemble programming, and it has its own trade-offs because of the different state of the environment, but it can work well. So I'm taking notes, Ethan, if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I want to show them at the end. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'll popcorn it over to, I guess, Peak. Thank you so much.
If you can share your notes on the Zoom screen, that would be great.
It'd also be great to see, could someone put the questions in the chat so that we can have them in mind at the same time?
So this is my first time doing this, and I like it, but it kind of scary to me, because but it's kind of, and I'm glad that today is about Python because I can read the code, and but when it comes to algorithm, I'm not. I can't think on the top of my head so fast. And I agree with Andy about like when I study Python and PyTest, they seem to have a folder structure. So when this time it's everything in one file, I kind of like I have to get used to it. But I think it's easier for demonstration because we deal with a couple function. What are other questions?
What would you do differently next time?
Oh, in terms of what?
Just if there's anything you can think of, like I think you mentioned some things like maybe having it in 2 files.
Oh,
You can pass as well.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. Let me pass it to Michelle.
Sure. So one thing that I learned was a bit how do you drive as opposed to navigate, which I think is an important lesson for me personally. Just how to kind of follow directions and let things happen, which I think is challenging sometimes. I actually think the test-driven development method worked well for this context where you're having people change roles so quickly. And so the tests keep things very well circumscribed and well defined. And if someone loses track of what's going on right now, they run the tests and they see where they are. So when there's like a group of people where things can be lost track of very easily, it slows down development in some ways, but I think in this circumstance, I could see it speeding things up considerably, depending on who's programming, right? Like, and how much experience they have. What would I do differently next time? I have more questions than answers to that. For example, is everybody quiet until the end? Do you like, how long do you let a pair struggle if they're struggling with a concept or with a step? It seems a bit cruel to let them just struggle for 5 minutes without the ability to, without something to help them move forward. On the other hand, you don't want one person's voice to take over the conversation all the time. So you don't want people to interrupt during that time. So I don't know how one hits a balance with that. And I don't know how you help a navigator like Peak, who does not have the experience with algorithms to just have them, come out naturally and smoothly, or even slowly. It's a lot of pressure to put someone under sometimes for some people. So how do you help that kind of navigator? What role does the driver have there? Do you try maybe to pair up people with experience? So you alternate people with experience, people more experienced, people with less experience. So they're always going together so that they can work through a problem, even if, it's a challenge. Or what do you do if you are lacking people? Do you have, if you have like 3 people with very little experience and one person with more experience, do you just interleave them anyway, even though one person would be going multiple times? I mean, then there would only be one navigator, really, I suppose. I don't know. Well, no, because they could be the driver. It's just like, how can those roles overlap when there's a disparity in experience? Yes, I think those are kind of like, I don't know what I would do differently, but that's something that I would think about and want to ask about if other people have ideas later, of course. I think that's it for my turn. I'm going to pass it to, actually, I know you're all thinking of passing it to you, but I'm going to pass it to Austin because he didn't get to participate, but I was wondering if he had thoughts anyway.
Sorry.
Austin. You were unmuted. You're now muted. And we apparently still can't hear you. So maybe your earbuds are disconnected.
Yeah, feel free to turn on your mic when you get everything sorted out, Austin. Do you want to popcorn to someone else for the moment, Michelle?
Sure. Molly.
So I really liked taking turns and being able to see different people go through the problems in different ways and come up with solutions, and the way that it all kind of came together. I I also thought it worked well, and I'm not sure if it was part of the plan really, but we kind of ended up pausing like in between the different pairs to discuss a few things here and there, some things that we might have been stuck on or different people had different ideas on. I really liked that everyone kind of had a chance to share after each turn, and that the next pair could kind of had a little bit more to go on at that point. And I don't know if this would defeat the purpose maybe, and it would have to kind of be like the honor system, that like if we were to see the code ahead of time just to become familiar with the syntax. I know just for me, like I don't use Python every day, so sometimes it just takes me a little bit to get into like remembering the Python specific syntax for things. So seeing it ahead of time would help me kind of prepare. But then you also wouldn't want like people to just solve it on their own ahead of time. So I can see how that might be an issue. Yeah. Austin, are you there yet?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
great.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. So I really like the way how we can collaborate with each other, and one can be the controller, another other people can work on the same code simultaneously. But I think it's sometimes it like, I don't know if there's something we can like make more smooth. For example, sometimes people move the cursor and other people will be affected. Is that avoidable? And also the combination of the AnyDesk and the PyCharm, it can, what's the real advantage of using this? I mean, if I use another remote desktop, for example, Microsoft remote desktop, right? And what's the real difference? And the PyCharm. Some people are familiar with PyCharm. Some people are not. I mean, what's the advantage of using PyCharm itself? I mean, comparing with the other IDE.
Great. Yeah, I'm gonna. Dad's collecting all these questions, and when we're done,
And
I'll answer the questions.
well,
And we have a
Ethan,
general discussion
do
as
you
well.
do you want to turn, Ethan? I mean,
Yes,
this
I
was your
definitely
experience
do.
as well.
I definitely do. So, am I the last person? Yeah. Yeah. So what I like. So what worked well is, you know, I think having the tests written. Some of the tests written were an advantage. I really like the way that everybody participated, and especially in the retro. It seems like you know, most people, if not everybody, got something out of this, so that's good. In terms of what I would do differently is, so there were a lot of technical hiccups. So you know, changed a bunch of things like the laptop screen size. And so what I would do differently next time is I would do a run through, definitely with a couple people ahead of time. I would do, you know, make sure I have this, the larger screen, work through the issues with, and I haven't seen it before, so I'm not sure how to do it, but try to work through the AnyDesk issues. I'm not clear why it was so problematic this time versus other times that I've used it. So if anybody has ideas on that, that would be great. Yeah, I think that's everything for me. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a great session.
Yeah, and if I can just really quick, I wanted to hit on that point that Brian said about separating things. That you can do the test-driven development on its own. You can do the mob programming on its own, and then ensemble programming on its own, and you can. There's different pieces of this that we probably ought to talk about separately. So we'll go into that more later. But thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to answer some questions. So Michelle, you had a question about, when to jump in if it looks like the driver and the navigator are struggling. So that's something that I've struggled with for a while. So some of it is in terms of I run a lot of these sessions, and often that's a challenge. So one of the things that I've done is, and I could have done it in this one, is to have if everybody is inexperienced, you can have a designated expert, and that expert can either facilitate can really be the navigator for each of the drivers. And so in that case, it's kind of like you're doing the expert is then in a teaching mode. The other thing that you can do, and I think this is more like a Socratic method, although I'm not completely familiar with what that term means, but I found that it's better. It can often work better if the expert just is there to answer questions. The challenge with that is getting people to ask the right questions and to feel comfortable asking questions and feel like they don't have to come up with the solution. This style of navigation that I was trying to use, but there were times when it broke down a little, which was fine. It was good that it broke down, but that style of navigation is very effective sometimes when you've got a new group, and there are certain people who want to jump in all the time. And then you end up, and maybe that's because that person knows a lot or whatever, but then it ends up that other people aren't contributing. You don't hear from other people and stuff like that. So once the team gets used to each other, then you can you can relax that style. So it's got advantages and disadvantages. So you could start off that it's got advantages and disadvantages, and I'm still figuring that one out as well. I think that the hand raising would be good, maybe, and then if the navigator, and we didn't really do that this time, but if like if Thad said, well, okay, so and so is raising their hand, because one of the things that's hard when you just let people interrupt is, and for different people, this works differently, but you've got a train of thought, and then somebody interrupts you, and it can really throw you off base if you're the navigator. And there can be multiple ways of doing things, and really the best thing to do is to try one method and follow it through.
There's a hand raised.
Yes. Oh, there's a hand raised. Yes. So go ahead, Brian. Yep.
I was just going to say, just from my experience and doing Plug Along, which is a Code for Boston project, which is run to varying degrees as a mob session, is that it really comes down to the balance of your objectives for that session. If you really need to get a particular thing done, you might move more in the direction of kind of pushing people along. If the purpose is more didactic, then I think you should let people work a little bit to figure out the answer to things, because part of the experience of programming is going to be looking through documentation, reading code. Learning to read code is an important skill to like trace through, where the execution goes, and also noticing things like noticing that there's an asterisk, and thinking to ask the question. Of course, that's a difficult thing to Google. So at that point, you should step in to explain what that is, so that people aren't spending their time formulating exactly how to find that. I don't think, because that's something you will become familiar with over time, and it doesn't hurt to kind of help people along in that area. And then one of the other reasons that we do mob sessions is because in the context of these projects of Code for Boston, where at least prior to being all remote, there would be different people every week whom we had to onboard to one degree or another. In that context, it's challenging to kind of create a sense of continuity in the face of new people coming in and possibly not continuing, and dropping them into a session like that, which you can, if half the group is new, you can kind of move more in the direction of like familiarizing people with the structure of the code. Dropping them in helps kind of orient them to like how the project works, both like in the practical sense of how do we work, but also just like what's the structure of the code, and like what's a practical thing that we're working on now. There's a kind of immediate way to concretize that without requiring them to immediately download Xcode and follow the README, which may or may not always be entirely up to date, and just kind of sit there struggling for the entire session without ever really seeing the kind of the fun part of realizing that it is mutable. Like these are things that are created and that evolve over time. And the theory is that kind of makes people want to keep doing it. Gives them a little bit more of a sense of buy-in, I guess. But anyway, but yeah, back to the original question. If you're trying to teach, then that's one thing. If you're trying to foster a community, that's another thing. It really just like for us, I think the balance changes from week to week, but that is kind of where you have to go if you want to find some kind of useful answer to how long do you let people struggle, how more or less do you kind of step in.
Thanks. Did you find that people did get more invested when you started mob programming?
Yeah, we've had like a solid group of people who have come and have been coming, throughout like over the past 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. And then there've also been people who came for a few months. Like we've had a pretty solid crew. It's been tougher though, I think, doing it remotely.
Okay, thank you.
And I think also, like, if you're lucky enough to have a large number of people, the ideal mob size is 3 to 5, I think. And then because once you get to like 6 and people are waiting around X number of minutes before they can code, they tend to start to disengage. So at that point, you might try to figure out how to break up into multiple mobs.
Good to know.
Great. Were there other questions that in there that you think I should, that we should discuss?
I'm happy with what we covered in this retro. What are you thinking?
Okay. Oh no, there was at least one other. Yeah, let's just open it up to question, because I remember I think it was Austin. You had some. It was either Austin or someone else definitely had questions. So let's. Yeah. So if you have a question, just ask it now, and we'll have a general discussion.
Oh, actually, I just have a question about the yeah. First of all, I like the TDD very much. It really helps a junior coder to learn and participate in the coding together and learn from each other. And I think it's very good combination of method using the AnyDesk and the PyCharm. My question is, what's the real advantage of using the PyCharm itself?
Okay.
Yeah, and also I have another question about is there a minimum like internet speed needed for doing this? For example, sometimes some people have a very poor internet connection, but some people are good. Will that affect the whole group?
Yeah. So I can. Yeah. So definitely, I've got experience with those. So the reason that the reason that I like AnyDesk I've only tried out Zoom, AnyDesk, and one other tool that I figured out that I forget. I mean, and when you were typing in AnyDesk, when it worked, it was pretty much instantaneous. That's been my experience. You type it and you see it immediately. And with Zoom, there's like a 2-second lag or 1-second lag. The lag is big enough to be noticeable, and it even though it's not much of a lag, I know our human brains wants to see the input immediately when we type. So you type the letter A and you don't see it, and it just drives you crazy. So AnyDesk has got great, is very fast compared to Zoom. And then in terms of PyCharm, and that, by the way, I'd like to try PyCharm in our group. So PyCharm has some excellent refactoring tools, which I should have practiced with more beforehand. But the things that you can do with PyCharm automatically, like that method that we were building, you can highlight it and you can move everything into another file automatically. You can generate things automatically. So it's got a lot of power to do things for you automatically. The other main tool that I've used is Visual Studio Code. And you can do various add-ons, and it's still not as good as PyCharm, but it will do some refactoring for you.
And just okay, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I realized we were not talking about IDEs. We were talking about IDEs, not live sharing.
Right. Well, yeah. So I was going to go into the live sharing next, though. So the other way to collaboratively code over the web is to use Visual Studio Code Live Share. And that is And when you use Visual Studio Code Live Share, you're typing onto the person's computer, but you're doing it from your computer. So you get, it has advantages of key mapping because you're using your own key mapping. And it's quite a good tool. We're even though we use Visual Studio Code in the project that we're currently in, the project that I'm working on with Thad, we actually use Visual Studio Code and AnyDesk. So even though we have the live share ability, we still we're using AnyDesk, right? And can you talk to that, Thad, why you like AnyDesk even when you have the option of live share?
Sure. So every time you're debugging, you need to see the screen, and then the driver would have to constantly be, as did you switch drivers, you would constantly have to be switching person sharing their browser, so that the driver could be sharing their browser in addition to the IDE. And with Zoom screen sharing, some people can share the whole screen, some people can share only one screen. It becomes very complicated. And AnyDesk simplifies all of that. You always have one environment that you're all sharing. So I don't think you can understate how handy that is when you're changing so quickly. Because everybody can see whether someone is connected, and then you can skip their turn or whatever is needed to keep moving.
Yep.
And you can still debug and do Google searches together in a consistent way, even as you're switching drivers and navigators.
Right, and I was in a recent session where I was using AnyDesk, and again, like I've never seen, I've used it a dozen times. I've never seen performance issues with it, except last week. And so in that case, I actually switched. The person's internet connection was so terrible. I don't know what his speed was. It was so terrible that I switched him to using Visual Studio Code Live Share, so that because he didn't, because he was just typing on his computer and just sending the characters that he was typing through live share, it was much faster for him because he didn't have to, duplicate this. He wasn't duplicating the screen.
Fantastic.
Great. Actually, I see we're at overtime. So thanks everybody for coming, and anybody who wants to stay on the line and chit chat, that would be great.
Thanks, everybody. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I-
Yeah, that was fun.
Great.
Thanks for trying this out with us, everyone. It's
I had a-
really exciting.
Yeah. Good night. I realized there wasn't time, but I was wondering, I don't know, maybe we can make a different time for talking about how to use it during non-coding, like Ensemble.
Yeah, I did that with the Windfall project initially when Ann Meeker was our project champion.
So I can't actually stay on here to do that.
That's okay.
I have to go, but maybe you all
happy to
discuss and
chat.
I'll see the recording, or like we'll do another session like this or something. Sorry, I
don't
don't
worry.
mean to run. I just
It's quite late, yeah. So and we've all had hack nights and other things all week. So anyway, have a good evening, and if we chat about that, I will refer the recording to you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, that maybe we can start up just a chat in Slack about that question.
Sure. That's a great idea. Is anyone else interested on that topic that maybe isn't on the Code for Boston Slack? Or I don't know, maybe we can do a show of hands. Who is coming from the other group and who is coming from Code for Boston? For the folks that are, how did y'all find out about this?
I learned about your group from Python Chicago. No, Boston. Sorry,
Uh-huh.
I'm from Chicago, and the presenter talk about um, your group, Boston Software Crafter.
Uh-huh.
But then, because I never done this before, and I saw there's an intro workshop for Ensemble, so that's how I find Code for Boston. But my question is, are they technically the same session for today? I saw there's two in the meetup.
No, yeah, they were the same session. Yes.
Okay, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I was just doing, it was hosted by Code for Boston, but I posted it also on Boston Software Crafters. And I meant to just, I meant to just have a link so that you had to sign up through Code for Boston.
I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad that everyone that was able to come made it, because it was way more engaging to have all of you here instead of just a few of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question next is like for the future session, how does it actually work? Because like today I'm lucky that you talk about Python so I can follow, but in the future when you talk about something else, do you, like today I don't know how many we have, 6, 8 people. When you have a bigger group, do you still do this pair programming, all like everyone's still doing it, or do you separate it in a breakout room? How
I'll
does
talk about Boston Software Crafters, and then Thad can talk about Code for Boston. So in Boston Software Crafters, we have a predetermined exercise like this. It's not actually, even though this was called an intro workshop, the only difference really was that I allowed more time for discussion. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the sessions in Boston Software Crafters. And I run Boston Software Crafters once a month. And we try to keep the groups between 3 and 5. If we get 7 or more people, then we break up into multiple groups. It's usually Python, which I think you'll like. Sometimes we will do it in multiple languages, but recently we've been doing just Python. And there's also, if you go onto bostonsoftwarecrafters.com and you look at there's a link, there's a menu option there for events and resources. It mentions all sorts of other groups that you can look at. And one of the groups, I'm involved in one of the groups, which is it's a daytime workshop that happens every 2 weeks from like 12:30 to 3:30. And that's specifically working on an open source project. So Boston Software Crafters session, it's an exercise that's supposed to be able to be solved in an evening. The other meetup, the open source meetup, is for an open source project. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ethan, I accidentally muted you, and when I meant to unmute myself, can you click the button that says unmute yourself? I pressed ask to unmute and it should pop up on your screen.
Oh, so now I don't know what you heard and what you didn't hear.
It was just the last like 20 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that.
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying that so that Boston Software Crafters meets once a month. There's another group. If you go to that website, you can look at Boston Software Crafters website. There's a bunch of resources for other groups like this. And in particular, there's one from that meets during.
Oh yeah, we got during the day. Yeah, I got all that.
Yeah,
We all
okay,
got all
great.
that. It was just the last like moment.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we're ready to probably close up. Any
Oh, no,
closing thoughts?
she had a question about how Code for Boston works.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. I guess that's why I was unmuting. Maybe I did catch it, and then I got distracted because I accidentally muted you, and I was like, oh no.
Okay.
So Code for Boston is a gathering every Tuesday evening in Boston, or on the internet and on Zoom now. If you go to codeforboston.org, you can find the meetup, the Zoom link, and about 7 p.m. There's about 8 projects right now that are active, usually on Boston-oriented projects. So there's projects like one's about picking up trash, which is called Plug Along, which Brian works on, and making that more fun and interactive, social. One of them is about making data around police more trustworthy and court cases. It's called Police Data Trust. There's another one that Michelle works on is called Clean Slate. And that one's all about helping people clean their record if they have a minor criminal charge or a past criminal charge that's no longer relevant to their life. So these are the kinds of projects that we work on at Code for Boston.
And yeah, and these are open source projects, and they don't necessarily do mob programming, and they don't necessarily do test-driven development, unlike the other meetups. But they're on real projects.
We're learning more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else anybody wants to talk about, including the weather?
Do you have like a code review process, like in terms of like mentoring? Like this is kind of mentoring too, but do you know how people do code review? Like,
Yeah. So in Code for Boston, so when we do in one group that I'm in with Thad, we don't do code reviews because we're all coding together. So the reviewing is happening while you're coding. But you can on Code for Boston and other open source projects, typically, if you're making changes by yourself, you do that change on a branch. I don't know if you're familiar with Git branching, and
okay.
then you do a pull request, and then somebody reviews your code when they approve the pull request.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a common practice in many of the Code for Boston projects. So yeah, okay. Brian, any closing remarks? We don't hear you. I guess he stepped away, but thanks.
I'm here, sorry.
Oh, you are, okay, great. Any closing remarks?
I had to do something. Not really. I did have one question, which was, how did the tests get written in the context of a mob session? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
That's not really a closing remark, is it?
No. Well, I mean,
it's a good question.
I'm fine answering it. Yeah, so that's part of the navigator's job, is to figure out what the next test is.
Okay, I would be sort of curious to see that in action, but or to try that, really. I guess I could search for it to see it in action.
Yeah. Well, there's Boston Software Crafters. You can come to that if you want another evening meetup to go to.
Yeah, maybe someday soon.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of So one of the so I'm running an open source project, and not, there's a lot of test-driven development practitioners who make it look like you write a test and your design is completely, you haven't thought about the design ahead of time. You haven't thought about anything ahead of time. And there's this impression that test-driven development is, okay, you write a test, something happens, you write the next test. So, I mean, there's other types of testing. There's other strategies for testing. And so what I've been doing for my most recent project is I write a description of all the tests ahead of time. And so, I mean, maybe it's not as interesting for people who come in, but the tests are all written, and I start to think about what I'm going to call the methods and things like that. So I'm kind of thinking up the design ahead of time. And the kind of one of the more famous people, I don't know if you know Bob Martin and Martin Fowler. But
The names, yeah.
Yeah, and Bob Martin also goes by the name Uncle Bob, but there are kind of big thought leaders in the software craft field. And I finally came across a video where he admitted he did design first. But what he said is, you do some sort of high level design, and then you let your tests, and just so that you have it in your mind, but you don't keep fixed to it. And he's found that as he's writing the tests make the design change. So, yeah, so my current opinion is it's good to kind of write some test descriptions ahead of time, and not to be thinking of tests on the fly.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I guess that is an interesting consideration. Is that I think it can be easy when you watch someone code, and maybe ensemble programming reinforces this notion that it all happens on the fly, and that
Right.
that the work is principally about typing code. I mean, that is how it gets converted into a real thing. Obviously, that's an essential part of it, and that is also when you potentially notice, when your idea confronts reality, you find the weak parts of your idea are the things that you've underspecified or have not thought about deeply enough. But of course, I know that my experience is that my best designs, my best code, I guess, is when I have just gone for a walk and have an idea, and it more or less springs from that.
Yeah.
Just an insight that I had, or what I consider an insight anyway. A sufficient insight for the purposes of whatever it is that I'm working on. And then, the actual work of turning that into code is sort of an exercise. But maybe that experience, I think, might also vary a little bit depending on how much code you've written.
Yeah. And yeah, and sort of something that you were talking about earlier is you said a lot of people who do mob programming also do test-driven development. So the reason there's that correlation is kind of the people who are into test-driven development are also into extreme programming. So it's more like people who are into software craft are also into, which is kind of another term for extreme programming, are also into, mod programming and test-driven development. And it is also a good pairing because, like Michelle was saying, you've got 5 people and you get kind of lost what you're doing, but the tests help you focus.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
So.
Although it did make me wonder how the tests get written.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm taking the approach of writing the tests ahead of time. But you can, I think if you are writing them as you go, you do have some sort of design in the back of your mind. At least you've gone for a walk, like you've said, right?
And that also brings us back to, I think Michelle's other question, which is how do you adapt this to design kinds of problems? I don't think she was necessarily, well, no, she wasn't talking about design specifically. She was talking about other kinds of things, which could be the sort of design we're talking about, or it could be UI design or UX design or something like that. But that's a big subject. And
or understanding policy in the case of windfall. Yeah, that the way that I thought of it initially on the windfall project was more of like a round robin, whereas you broke out into the appropriately sized groups to work on these kinds of things and then came back together when you had questions or when you had answers or questions. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, some people do like to talk about mob programming for non-coding activities. And I think they're stretching the definition a little bit. It's really like, how do you, I mean, I think you're kind of asking like, how do you come up with, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but how do you come up with good requirements collaboratively? Right. So how do you figure out what it is that you need to do? And one of the techniques I've seen that I like is lean, kind of lean coffee techniques, where you or post-it techniques. You put post-it in the old days. You put post-its on the wall. You get 3 votes, and then you start putting you put votes next to the things that you think are most important.
Right. So to me, when you say going for a walk, you're like updating your model of what the problem looks like. And sometimes with real world problems like Code for Boston type problems, like you don't always know what you're doing when you start. And that's what test driven development really helps you with, actually, in some cases, is checking your model against, like when you actually try to like push out the edges of your model and test the edges of it. Does it hold up to what you expected going in, right? Is that a good way to think about it? Like
okay, go ahead.
The tests like the tests give you a way to simulate the actual situation of the problem space that your tool is meant to explore.
Yeah, so I think of the tests as a way of making it clear what you mean. So I think that's saying a similar thing to what you're saying, right?
Right, and then connected to that, the people that are doing non-coding stuff, they can totally help you understand the problem better, and be, whether they're experts on the side or that you can consult and ask them about the problem, or whether they have to go off to figure something out and then come back and then be available as experts, however it's set up. But I think that's how it kind of ends up working together, in my experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and there's also, there's a related type of methodology called behavioral driven development and acceptance test driven development. And that's a really good way to interact. It's at a higher level. It's testing at a higher level. And that's a good way to interact with, I think that's something that you can work out with non-coders. It's like, okay, when you give the machine not enough money, the vending machine not enough money, what do you expect it to do? And that's kind of from that answer, you're developing a test.
So, I mean, there are two sides to this. I mean, on the one hand, I see that, and I think I do see the benefit of using test-driven development for shaking out the pieces of your model that might be underspecified, exactly like that, for example. But on the other hand, if you're in the initial stages of working on something, I feel as if, I mean, and typing, like strict typing can be this way too, that it can actually constrict your movement if you're trying to do exploratory work and you're trying to feel out of space and something is very sketchily modeled. You have some target, but it's not it's really not clearly specified. And starting with tests to move in that direction doesn't seem to be a great way to get from here to there. In fact, it seems like it would kind of ossify your program prematurely.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's really tests are for when you've got an idea of what your requirements are. So the thing that I think is most effective in terms of getting requirements, but it requires end users who are willing to spend some time, but it's to do, process flows. How do you think this is going to work? So I've been doing that with my niece. Actually, she works for a nonprofit, and they're at their wits' end. And I started out with, they were doing a lot of, okay, I would like a system that does X, Y, and Z. And I found that it was just much more effective once we got into, okay, so what is it that you do on a daily basis, and how do you do it, and what's the flow and stuff like that, and what parts of the flow are the most painful that we can improve for you?
Yeah, that's it. This is what I think maybe what's interesting about adapting. You're right. Like using the term mob programming too broadly definitely stretches it to meaningless at a certain point. But there is something that I think that can be translated, which is that there is something concrete, there's something procedural, and there's something that can be, like, in some sense, evaluated, whether those rules are kind of executed in the form of like a procedure that people execute, or if it's in the form of code. I think it's possible, I think, that you could adapt it to other kinds of other things. Because I mean, if you go too far and you just say, well, this is a mob, I don't know, a session that's like, I don't know, like trying to decide what to make for dinner or something, that's just a conversation.
Right.
So you could take it there and it ends meaningless. But I do think there is something there. There is something that about the concrete shared reference point, I guess, that maybe is
even if
valuable.
Even if you
places.
have someone in the pair that's like less familiar with coding and the other person's very familiar, like everybody's bringing something different. It's like the ensemble. I use the emojis, like somebody has a saxophone, somebody has a banjo, somebody has a electric guitar. Like everybody's contributing on something a little bit different, and in that pair between the driver and the navigator, whether you use those roles or not, but you can, if the people know each other well, they can push the narrative and the understanding and the model of the problem forward, potentially in a mob style.
I was with Ethan, with your niece. Are they ultimately delivering a technical, like a piece of technology, or is it like technology in the sense of a program?
Yeah, no, they're gonna, well, it ended up being something, the solution ended up being kind of fairly simple, but yeah, so their situation was that they want to implement a computer system which automates a lot of the stuff that is time consuming. So that's a very broad,
Yeah.
I mean, it includes contract management, email management, accounts payable. You know, it's like this huge thing.
I hear a Microsoft salesperson just salivating.
Yeah. Actually, well, what it is they're going to go with sales. They have Salesforce already.
Salesforce. Yeah.
And I started, you know, so I spent all this time with her, like, okay, what do you want for contract management? What's your process flow? Blah, blah, you know, and then I looked at the contract management, you know, just their front page of their contract management module. And I showed it to her and she says, yeah, that's exactly what we need. So it's Salesforce is very impressive from what I've seen of it. And then
Yeah, I've not done much with it.
And then the other thing that she needs to do is, okay, you got all these emails, they're going to different people. So customer sends a message to person A, and you know, then person A goes on vacation, and so the person who takes over, or no, sorry, the employee goes on vacation. So how do you look at that person's emails for that? For that customer that they had with that customer. And so Salesforce has got an email management system that lets you organize emails by customer. And so anybody, you can still send emails to specific people, but other people on your team can see those emails. So it's, yeah, it's very good.
Okay, well, I feel like we should rest now. But
Okay.
again, thanks everybody, and I will put up a link once I cut the recording a little bit according to people's wishes. And again, thank you, Ethan, for your
Yes.
careful coordination and writing the tests in advance.
Thanks, Ethan.
It was really
Yeah,
helpful.
thanks for giving me the opportunity. It was great.
Yeah, thanks again for doing this.
Okay.
Hi.
Good night.
All right.